All right. Welcome, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. And let me just make sure that I am recording. Awesome. All right. So welcome, everyone, to our Health IT Anti-Racism Committee speaker series. We have our keynote speaker, Shawn Graham, who will be with us today in discussing a vision of hope, healing, and heritage. So we have a lot to talk about today. Let's go ahead and get started. I'd first like to just recap and thank you all for joining. And we'll start off with some housekeeping. So please note that we will have time for Q&A after the presentation, and we'll actually be doing an interactive polling session as well. So looking forward to that. But one of the things we'd like to just remind everyone is communication guidelines. Own your intentions and impacts. Welcome multiple viewpoints. Work to recognize your privileges. Take risks and lean into discomfort, and make space for everyone. Listen, ask, voice, inquire, and process the information that we will all be receiving and sharing today. So thank you, everyone. Let's go ahead and get started. Sorry, just a quick reminder. This session is recorded and it will be available after our event today, and it'll be available on the ARC website. We also just kind of like to put a plug in for our next speaker series event that will be happening on April the 11th. And Sophia and I always like to start off with a quote and just thoughts. So in every community, there is work to be done. In every nation, there are wounds to heal. In every heart, there is the power to do it. By M. Williamson, author and political activist. And without further ado, we will go ahead and get started with Shawn Graham. So who is Shawn Graham? Shawn Graham is the co-founder and president of the 5013 Hope community based in Alabama, and one of the 12 founding executive board members of the Equity Project Alliance based in Pensacola, Florida. Organizations that are dedicated to combat systemic hate through disruptive applications of love aimed at regenerating people as contributors to a community we can all be proud of. Mr. Graham was selected by the mayor of Fairhope, Alabama, to serve on Fairhope's Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee to help address an equal and fair housing challenges, as well as promote a more inclusive use of city resources. He also serves as treasurer and finance committee chairperson and board member of the Baldwin Family Violence Shelter for women, children, and families facing sexual assault and domestic violence situations. Each quarter, Shawn works with an advisory board for the University of South Alabama Health Systems, Mitchell Cancer Institute, with a focus on driving better outcomes amongst African Americans and other minority groups, fighting against all preventative forms on cancer with education, increased research, and access to screenings. When not serving his community, Mr. Graham evangelizes to business leaders across the Southeast about deploying data center networking tools, generative AI, and cybersecurity technologies. As head of the IT division and vice president of technology services for Xerox Business Solutions, driving better business outcomes and overseeing sales management and service operations. There are 10 ways that you can positively impact your community and drive forth all of these various initiatives. Without further ado, please welcome Shawn Graham. Shawn, thank you. Take it away.
Wow. Well, thank you, Christina. I appreciate that introduction. Really hard to follow that. The meeting's over, folks, just like that, right? I mean, this is what you came here for, right? No, but listen, it's such an honor and a privilege to be with you. I'm really excited to sort of impart upon you that anything is possible. So I'm in Alabama, good people, and you all are all over the place. It's cool to see all of these 107 participants. you are all over the place. I can tell you right now that the University of California, San Francisco is 2,300 miles away from me. But with technology, we can all be here in the same room in the same session. So I love that. I'm excited about the opportunity to tell you a little bit about us and what we do. And so in a moment here, I'm going to share my screen with you. And, I want this to be, obviously, this is your session, right? So at the end, there'll be an opportunity for feedback. Along the way, there'll be some opportunity to engage you. But I just want you to really think in a community mindset. Because so many times people say, well, what do I need to do to change the world? Even when I was a kid, some of us growing up, we think, what do we do to change the world? Wouldn't that be so awesome? And then the older you get, you start to see the real world problems, and then you you get a little bit afraid, or you might sink into yourself and say, I'm not enough. I can't control or even change the world. It's so large. There's so many things going on, and I can't do it by myself. But I'm here to tell you and show you just an idea, not saying it's a blueprint or the best way or the only way, but this is the way that we did it in complicated South Alabama, at the place that you're looking at today. So uh, I'll go ahead and get started with a little bit of this here. So just a little bit about sort of what we've done and some things. Let me get this going here so I could make this a little bit better for you. So just a little bit about how we got started. Literally three friends, three local people sitting down for coffee at the table at a coffee shop that was a locally owned coffee shop, friends of ours. And, this is 2016 after the election. We felt like everyone was at odds, right? Family members not getting along, married couples breaking up. It was just, we couldn't communicate with the kids. The kids felt like the parents didn't hear them. We were just sort of all splintering and breaking apart. Not just the family, but friends and coworkers. If you voted this way, then people will isolate you. Or, I mean, it was wild. But there were so many of us, I think, that felt like that's just not right. We got to get beyond that. So it really just started out of that synergy of how do we not accept what the world or the nation or what parties or people say about us, and how do we control our own destiny, right? And not only that, how can we make an impact locally? Because I felt like when I just went out and did the one thing and voted like someone told me to do, it didn't pan out for me. So now what? What do I do? And so 84 workshops later, we just started small and invited friends and like-minded people and said, hey, let's learn about ourselves. Let's learn about how we feel about race in general. Let's have that conversation in Alabama that people do not like to have or want to have, right? Whether it's, they talk about it all the time. You either pick Alabama or Auburn football. You do not talk about your religion, and you do not talk about politics, right? And so that was also one of those things that is sort of this bad culture of ignore it, don't talk about it, but have all of these things sort of like an iceberg, right? Where you see the top, but most of the damage could be done below surface. And so after 84 workshops, we came together, we had a plan and an idea to, like, let's just be a group of individuals that make little small incremental changes in the spaces that we work and live in and spend the most time in, with the influences that we have. So with that, we eventually got control over 16 acres of land. We've done really cool things. Members of ours removed the Confederate flag emblem from the county seal. We've done a couple of plaques and preserving historical markers so that we can gently educate, never indoctrinate, right? But educate people about the land that they stand on, the origination of it, and a lot of the synergies that happen for it to be what it is today. We've even done some things like help people get, access to home remodel, reconstruction after they've had things like that's happened to them that's to no fault of their own, like hurricanes and different issues where maybe they don't have the right kind of insurance or enough or know about it. So in doing this community to where we found that, all of this is so local. Even the national stuff is really local, is where it happens and where you can make the most impact. And that's exciting. That's fun for us because we feel like we can actually make our mark much better and have a say in what happens right outside our door. And that's really one of the things I really want you to really take home. Obviously now we've gotten, to be a bit larger. There's probably somewhere between 400 and 1,000 members that contribute in some way, shape, or form. We've donated over 16,500 pieces of deodorant, soap, and shampoo, conditioner, glasses, eyewear to local private prison, just simply because they only get 30 days worth of those things that come as a part of being incarcerated in the local private prison. By the way, that's effective everywhere. That's just what we found out that was happening outside of our door. And so what we challenged ourselves to say, if we really care about people, right, if we really care about people as much as we care about our pets, we probably feel like they should be able to have soap and conditioner and things like that. And so blacks, whites, rich and poor, everyone got on board and said, we don't care what the crime that's been committed or whatever, people should have a level of dignity. And so there's little things that sort of morphed and been kind of like, we've kind of been like a spinoff company where we started off with that focus. And then we actually, when it came to the results and the actions, we really started to gravitate towards projects on our own. So, what our mission is, and we work together as a board to come up with this, is very simple. So we really want to nurture unity and human rights around education, relationships, and really, what really became the premise for us is, things that are based on food, right? So food is the big thing that we really felt like when we had our workshops that could be the missing link in allowing us to have this free and open conversation, right? That's uncomfortable, right? Around race and race relations in our not only in our country but in our communities. But it was the tug of war is that people didn't have a level of how to communicate in a safe manner. So that's where we started. And we got really good at having these open and honest and conversations, and we got closer together. There were, case in point, there was a white woman who admitted, publicly that whenever I see a black man come across, if I'm driving in my car or I'm on the highway or if I'm parking at the grocery store, I am afraid and I will lock my door and clutch my purse. And out of that fear. But most of that fear for her was based upon what she was seeing in media, on the local news, because it's sort of a caricature and some people take one of that example of something that might be happening in a community and sort of paint a broad brush for everyone, right? But her story was met with the counter where an African American said, well, I too am afraid when I walk by because I feel like you might accuse me of something that I didn't do, right? So, and then both sides were able to come together and have a real conversation because all along their fear and this, this sort of this sense of what's supposed to be fear has kept them from progressing and from learning about each other. And that learning and lack of learning has kept them from growing out and beyond. And so really with that, I mean, it was such a positive interaction. So many of those interactions that I can't even put on paper or in numbers, but I can just tell you the reason why we have, up to 1,000 people is because those are individual experiences and stories that are happening throughout our entire organization and in their families and in their communities, because they're now able to have this conversation. But, I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you that at a certain point, you got to stop talking and start doing. We still have those conversations, but they're less about diagnosing the issue in that role, and they're more about addressing the problem, right? So there's so much talk. There's a ton of money and a ton of opportunity that's been made and had in talking about things, but there's unfortunately a lot less action, and even more so action that happens on an ongoing basis. So really what we decided to do, hey, listen, there's not a lot of action. like maybe what if we, just a little small couple of group of people here, what if we just kind of decided to specialize in being a conduit for action to happen? Or we can sort of be in the business of creating application so that people can then go forth and start doing a lot of these things. And that's how the whole farming and farm education became a part of it, right? That's that connection. So we want to obviously highlight and spotlight African American history. We want to also talk about it in a way that's uniting so everybody can get behind it. So we found this school that's in our community in Fairhope, one of the oldest African American start built schools in the county, right? And it's right now, as you can see on this screen, it's a building with 3 classrooms, but it was a vibrant, beautiful part of town, 100% Black, and people came here for May Day, for entertainment, for fun, for education. And that was started during segregation in the early 1900s, 1907, right? So what happens from there is Blacks weren't allowed to be in public schools. Obviously, you're in the South. And so what this community did, and some of my family members started this school, and they worked with a white woman who was a Quaker out of Pennsylvania and Booker T. Washington to fund education by Blacks for Blacks during segregation in that school. So what we loved about that story is that obviously it was over 100 years ago, and they worked together to educate Black students so that they can then have job opportunities for the modern economy at that time. But it was a great interaction between both Blacks and whites in a time where it was dangerous to your life to do that, both as a Black and white working together. So that story was so awesome. The school was dilapidated. The school had a lot of issues. The property became owned by the state of Alabama. You would not believe once we unpack the rest of that story in order to try to revitalize the property. I mean, it's been tied up with the school system. And what we did is we negotiated some control over the property where we're starting and have started our farm and our teaching kitchen and our education facility. So see, people say all the time, so Shawn, why farming? You know, what does that have to do with race, or why food education? Minorities, you know, I'd say one in 4 Blacks across the country suffer from food insecurity, right? You also have the issue of a lack of nutrition and what that leads to, whether when you're not nourished well as a student, as a child, or even as an adult, you're less effective in society. You're less likely to comprehend and educate and care about those things. You're less likely to behave appropriately, right? So we felt like that was like the bottom level foundational thing that we can address. And everybody loves food, especially in the South, right? So we felt like we can galvanize the community on one thing that's very uniting in food. And in the process, we can invite several different cultures to the table to share their food, their taste, their family recipes. And then we can talk about alternatives to doing it in such a way that promote health, wellness, well-being. So that was really the exciting thing. And while we did that, because it was unifying, we can take that old property that's been dilapidated and forgotten about, that has kind of been a crime infested area, right? And then do this school, gravitate towards the community and rebuild the value and the pride that African Americans had in the area. So we've been able to bring all sides together. Everyone's excited about that. And with such a rich positive history, how can you not be, right? So here's a picture of Anna T. Jeans. The school was named after her. Again, just one person who cared and then invited another like-minded person, folks. Like that's the secret sauce, right? I'm 2,300 miles away, but it doesn't take me. All we are looking for is people like you to rise up and fill a void, right? And we'll get to the bottom of this as far as what you can do to possibly do some of that in your town and your neck of the woods, wherever you are. Again, family, the people on the left are my cousins and relatives. So about 5 or 6 founding families that started Fairhope. As you may or may not know, now Fairhope is one of the fastest growing places in the country. Baldwin County is the 7th fastest growing county in the United States for the past 10 years or so. Fairhope is located within Baldwin County. So we have, I'm in coastal Alabama, so it's beautiful, but it's also growing. And what you're seeing is that a lot of people coming in, they're sold their homes in larger cities. They're coming with some of that that money that they've sold their homes with, and they're moving here into these towns. That's beautiful, and we love that, right? The challenge is sometimes is that some of us African American heritage is gone as a result of, whether incidental or not, gentrification that happens. And oftentimes we find, and just in our research locally, that that is incidental because there's a lack of community that's established. There's a lack of conversations that are being had. So these things happen to where Blacks, older, senior citizens, folks whose children might be in different states, their assets for the property isn't all in the right way that it should be set up and structured. So that leads to property being had or given away or sold for pennies on the dollar, only to be developed by someone, and their generational wealth is then transferred, which is what we've seen some of all too often. You all know these stories, right? And so, again, we just want to be a conduit. We just want to be an application specialist by helping people that have a heart and a desire to do good and do right, and to help other people, the other, whoever that other is. In our case, it's Black people in this situation, but help them get to where they need and really level the playing field a little bit. So that's sort of the history there. So it's 2 visions for us, right? So all of that, we decided to talk about things, but not just talk about race, but putting the action towards a real plan, right? And growing from having great relationships and across the community, talking to the very people that might try to vote against some of the things that we're doing, but keeping those lines of communications open, right? Sort of old school politics, which is kind of crazy. It's not like that as much anymore. But we want to preserve the history of African Americans in Fairhope South, which again is the poorest part of Fairhope. And then we want to create a community hub in place of just building a lot of structures and a lot of subdivisions or mixed use development that only benefits 1 or 2 individuals, right? So that was really the secret sauce there. I talked a little bit about, why a teaching farm, just even, looking at the data, because I'm a data person being in technology in our area, just specifically, 3/4 of Alabama students who left school before graduating just recently here, the class of 2022, were economically disadvantaged. So 6 out of 10 were males, right? That's not just Black males, that's all. 6 out of 10 were males, half were white, right? So some people say, well, aren't we just supposed to be worried about just the Black plight in this? And yes, we are. Yes, that doesn't take a back seat, right? But if we really want to make progress, we can't leave anybody behind. If I have 2 babies that are on a corner of a road and they're both about to inject heroin in their vein, I'm not going to say, well, let's take care of the Black one first. There's still 2 babies, and both of them need somebody, right? They need help. And if we leave one of them behind, then that other one that's now left behind now becomes a future problem that could be massively greater than the problem we have today, right? So that's essentially how we look at it. And it's really helped sort of minimize some of the friction of us not picking sides and essentially being for all, right? And really preferencing how we start that conversation with the least of these, essentially. Here's a really cool design of the property overall, about 14 acres. You can see the raised beds. We're going to have a community raised beds fellowship program that gets all different parts of the community engaged, right? For learning how to raise, essentially grow produce and grow crops. If you can grow things locally, you cut down the cost of it, right? It makes the rising cost of food significantly more affordable, right? So now we're addressing not only food insecurity, but just the economic toxicity financially that individuals have that always hits the people that are mostly underserved the hardest, right? So educating them that on how to do, also creating workforce development opportunities where they come in, the youth, 10th through 12th graders come in and can learn how we do things from a financial perspective. We're working with right now the University of South Alabama and their communications department, and allowing some of those students to get internship opportunities with us and learn marketing and social media in a real business that's a nonprofit, right? So there's opportunities like that for business for young folks, and also especially the underserved in the area, which is predominantly African American. So that's one of our ways to continue to allow it to be a system upon itself. Now, while an older person might be interested, is what we're educating you about what certain foods do for you, right? To extend health, to give you a better way of life, and extend your years, right? And so that's sort of the blue zone component of what we are endeavoring to start here in our area. California, you guys are awesome. You're like the only one in the United States who have a blue zone, and it's really based around community, people having a purpose, and organizing that around health, whether it's the way we eat, the options that we have on our menus in restaurants and hotels, and the ability to have walkable walk space. And so this design was set up in the light of that. And you'll see walking trails that'll have signage and different things like that we could educate people as they are engaging in their community and crossing lines that ordinarily they wouldn't cross together. We'll be doing things, and we have done things like cooking opportunities where we have a cook locally come in. Things are grown locally, and we don't tell people what it is, but they come in and they taste it, and it tastes so good they will not believe half of it is vegan or vegetarian and grown here right in their community. Those things just really tear down the walls, just really education on purpose and in real life and in real time. This is the second property here that we had talked about. We talked about two hubs. So Middle Street, close to a 100-year-old church, that White Church Lebanon Chapel, a beautiful church. They only have about 5 members left. And so this property is really going to be meant for an overflow. So we're fundraising for these endeavors that we have and these programs and projects. You'll see there some design around what we have in store. But this is sort of what's been birthed out of our community conversation. This wasn't like my idea. I'm not a farmer, right? But what it did, it forced me to get educated and to call in the experts who care about this and making a difference, right? Who have expertise in these fields of interest for us. Really it comes down to these values, and most organizations have, values. University of California, San Francisco has values, obviously, as well. To us, everything starts with education. Now, we do know, coincidentally, there's an assault on education, especially in the Alabama and Florida area, where people want to remove books from libraries, or they want to reframe what can be taught in school, or just remove access, right? And our way of breaking through that is really starting with community and really not starting in the school system. But education is key, and that really starts with just meeting people for lunch, for coffee, for breakfast, on that one-to-one, peer-to-peer perspective. That was the one of the 3 pillars of Hope Community when we started it, is let's never give up learning about each other and understanding who we are sort of at a core before we even get into any of the agendas. Let's just really understand people and each other and our plights, because we all have that trauma in some way, shape, or form. We all have, or come from, or have dealt with, or have overcome, or looking to overcome some form of trauma or pain in our lives, whether it's caused internally, right, or by what we eat or don't eat, or by our family, right, or by people outside, external folks that we may not know. I've been involved in several different groups, and as you've heard earlier, essentially it all boils down to the pain and trauma. And there's some really fantastic foods that you can eat that I could tell you about that actually makes an impact on that, on your health, and whether you have, issues with hypertension, because sometimes that pain leads to things like heart disease, right? So really addressing it from that perspective allow us to heal, and not only heal, but both sides. The person who's coming from racism household or a racist household, and also the people who are actually sort of getting harmed as a result of that. It's the same way with when I'm working with domestic violence situation with women. There's an individual who's actually causing the pain and victimizing the other person who's the victim. But the challenge is that both of them need care, and both of them need to be sort of have their brains rewired. And you can do a lot of that by what we eat and put into our bodies. So that's why food and healing and inclusivity. Some people say, well, wait, are you for this group? Or are you not for that group? And we're like, we're for everybody. That's sort of how we were. We're not isolating anybody. We're for everyone. We're not asking questions. There's not a checklist that you have to sign. It's not a country club. It is a people group. And so sustainability, we don't want to just, I said that earlier, right? We don't want to just come in with one thing. It's the month. It doesn't have to be Black History Month. It should be all the time. It's our history. It's not just Black history. It's American history. It's world history, right? So we got to start thinking at this differently. And once we do that, I think you can get a lot of people on board. These are just a few of our community partners and advocates that we keep picking up that are mostly white owned and run businesses that care, and they get the value of it, because you know what, they have family members too that may not look like me, but they understand the plight of people who are underserved. So we make it less about the logos, and we make it all about the issue, and then also how we get on a path and a roadmap to solving the problems. Starting with our community, not too big, but achievable and small and incremental changes. So call to action. Call to action. This is all about action. I started off talking about action. We talked, we met, and we're still going through a process where we're still growing as people. I'm still growing as a person. I will make mistakes. I am a practicing vegan. I am a vegan one day a week. So if you see me and on Saturday I have barbecue, please do not kick me out of the vegan group. Okay, I'm still practicing, and that's sort of what we want to be for everything that we're doing. Is more inclusive, and we want you to come in as you are, meeting you where you are. So really for you all, no matter where you are, I know people are all over the map here. Think local and be open. That's really where we started. Think local, be open. We had all sorts of people come through. Also, people that disagreed. I had someone just the other day, wealthy person. Why is diversity important to you? Why do y'all talk about diversity? Well, it's like, well, I can give you a couple of examples. Diversity actually helps you have more profit in your business. It creates other perspectives other than your own, because you don't want to have groupthink. You need people that think and reason and have different perspectives that can help your business be better, more profitable. There's opportunities to learn and grow. There's business expansion opportunity out of that as well. There's just doing right and having other people be developed and uplifted, which also, by the way, helps you as well. So I was giving them reasons. There's several reasons, not for the sake of being diverse, but actually there's a lot of win and a lot of things that's positive in it for you. So, think local, be open, don't put up walls, build bridges, right? Find the pain and discover purpose. So just outside your door, when you walk out and you check the mailbox, look around, sort of feel that, put your feet in the grass. Get off your heels and onto your toes and be about action. There's a ton of pain. What about your own pain? What have you gone through? Right. I tell a lot of people that join us, they're like, hey, how can I help out? Or what can I do? Like, just don't just do what we need, do what sort of feeds you as well. I can tell you that I have a lot of different jobs and a lot of nonprofit work that I do. It's become a lifestyle for me. It's a way of life. And the reason being is because I find a lot of purpose in it. And actually, my giving and time and energy, resource, money, and all of that comes back to me in a crazy way where I feel like it's not even painful to do this anymore. It's become a way of life for me. And my life is so much more joyful because I have a true perspective of pain and hurt and of the shared American experiences that we all have. And it's really made my life a lot better. It also has created in us a lot of other partners that feel the same, that we're actually getting more out of it than we are. We're not even getting paid. So we're getting more out of it than we're giving to it. So like 100%, no one takes a salary or gets paid or anything. Donate a skill to charity. That's another good way. I started off after college into the investment world with Merrill Lynch. And so I do treasury work for the Lighthouse, which is Baldwin Family Violence for women and families caught up in domestic violence. I do that. I do some other things there, but if I just did that, oh, they would be so thrilled, right? And so there's little things that you can do that you have a skill in. I have some folks that's like, hey, we just love to cut grass. That's just what we do. We're outdoor people. We don't want to be in a committee, but we'll just cut grass. Perfect. We need grass cut. Do that. You own it. Thank you. You're awesome. Right? There's so many things you could do. Invite someone who doesn't look like you to lunch. Now that could be easier in your neck of the woods. Sometimes it's harder if you're in places that may not have a lot of diversity. So Fairhope within Baldwin County is probably like 90% white, 3 or 4% black. All of those black people are basically my family. I mean, it's wow. We have about 2-3% Asian population. Some of the folks who've done our production stuff, Asian, great people. So it's different. You got to work a little bit hard, but I'm telling you, you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable, because otherwise you're never going to solve the problem locally. Find or start a community garden. That's just sort of what we did. It's amazing. There's so many people that care about just growing things locally. There's so many benefits that really directly impact underserved people. And it creates, something that we forgot. There's young kids that are so used to their iPads and tablets that don't even know how things are grown, don't even know. They feel like the McDonald's or the grocery store is how things are made, right? So we have a truly an opportunity to actually start manufacturing things here in our country again, and food could be a launch pad for that. The last one, if you want to sign up, we have a website, hubcommunityaL.org. If you want to go on there, you can kind of learn about what we're doing. There's different things that you could do. You could donate, you can provide a talent, or even better, I prefer you just to start your own. People come to us all the time and say, hey, Shawn, could you help us start one of these in our town? We're not there yet. We're super focused on really driving more results where we are, but I would challenge you to do it yourself. And, I'm happy to talk to you about, some of our lessons learned and some of the people that we partner with, right, to get our job, to get this done the right way. I may be able to
Vision for
show.
Hope Community is to be a community gathering safe space so that we can all come together, learn about each other in a safe manner. We can grow things together, just like at the kitchen table in the old days. We're bringing that back. We want to put together training programs and curriculum and leadership development, workforce development for the young folks, teaching older folks and folks like myself how to cook in a clean way so that we can expand our life, we can have more freedom, more energy, and we can live longer and see our grandkids grow up, instill upon them better habits, and then they can get that community and appreciate it.
So that's our story. I thank everybody for your time. I'd love to open it up for questions if anyone has any.
What have been your
Alright.
biggest hurdles?
I'm sorry?
What have been your biggest hurdles that others might encounter?
Biggest hurdles. That's a good question. Managing expectations is a big hurdle. Because there's a lot of people that want to contribute money at different stages of this. There's a lot of, eyeballs that are paying attention. And because it's, we're doing something that really has not been done well or enough of at all throughout the country. And so we're pioneering something that people want it to happen like yesterday, right? And when you're growing things, that takes time. There's different seasons that are growing seasons that are applicable to what you're doing. And so really just keeping people focused on incremental successes by what we're growing, some of the programming that we're doing and how we're galvanizing community, but not just so focused on the end game. I think we all become so focused just on the result that we forget about the journey. And unless you enjoy the journey, it can make just focusing on the result and the outcome tedious, stressful, and quite a hurdle to overcome.
Very exciting work. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you
so
for
much.
having me. Any other questions? Christina, we have any other questions out there? I could not have done it that well that there's no questions but one.
Well, we are, Shawn. Sophia, thank you, Sophia, for getting the poll together. So we are going to do a quick little interactive session, just following along with what Shawn was talking and sharing with us. And so the big takeaway from this is, get involved and call it to action. So we are going to ask, if you can, go ahead and click with your phone, please. You can either get out your phone and scan the QR code, or you can also join by web. All of the information is there. This is anonymous. This is an anonymous survey, so I want folks to feel comfortable. And you don't have to register or participate. So please use that click skip button, and we will go ahead and get started. Sophia, are we ready?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. Oh,
All right.
look. We're awesome.
So just to make sure that everyone's feeling comfortable with the tool that we're using, as you can see, in one word, how are you feeling today? And as more and more people are feeling the same way, you'll notice that that information is getting larger and larger, so we can see that a lot of us right now are feeling a little overwhelmed, stressed, and tired.
I love all of the different words too. It's nice. They're all good feelings.
And so we do want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to tell us in one word how you're feeling today. And so we'll give a few more moments for those of you who have not already locked in your word to go ahead and do so.
Hey, Christina, there's some questions in the chat too. I don't know if you want to read them out while we wait.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
No problem.
So Shawn, this comes from Brenda. First,
Okay.
your talk was very inspiring. I know everyone feels this, but a question: have you been able to partner with other communities to spread your program? Your program needs to be replicated.
Yes, we've had partnerships that have started to come about. We've had, the funny thing, and thanks for that question, but it's such a brilliant one as well. It's like we want to go so far really fast, but sometimes you have to slow down to go really far. And, at first, we're learning from others who have best practices, who are having success. There's another partner of ours who's Jones Valley Teaching Farm. Their model is the same. They operate a little bit differently, but they're in Upper Alabama, and they've been a great partner. There's some folks in Florida and New Orleans who's doing this work as well, but there's not enough people talking about it, which is why I took this opportunity to really tell you all about it, because it literally, we started with a couple of people and everyone wanted to solve every problem. We wanted to pass laws. We wanted to go after the congressmen and senators. We wanted to build affordable housing. But it was like all of these things that makes you overwhelmed for sure, right? But the way around that is really focusing on one thing that you can unite a lot of people around. That doesn't use the buzzwords that are out there that people always tend to turn into a myth or reframe to be something that you don't mean it to be, right? So that's how we landed on what we landed on, because it's a great way to engage people from all communities to impact every community.
Thank you, Shawn.
Yeah, thank you.
And
So in one word, what are challenges that you see in your neighborhood or community?
And while folks are responding, I'm going to go ahead and continue with the chat. We have one more question, Shawn. This comes from Cordell. What are your thoughts about food desserts? Here is the definition of those that don't know. Food desserts are geographic areas where residents have few to no convenient options for securing affordable and healthy foods, especially fresh vegetables, fruits, and vegetables. Disproportionately found in high poverty areas, food desserts create extra everyday hurdles that can make it harder for kids, families, and communities to grow healthy and strong.
Oh, that's a big one. Food deserts are a problem. Find them mostly in cities, right, where there's a lot of buildings. And, again, the way we've allowed, anybody to essentially come in and develop something, typically they're not talking to all the stakeholders and community people, whether it's business, the children, the youth, the people who have to live and work around that area. And oftentimes you get things like that are over industrialized, and there's ag is completely forgotten. And so that is a problem, which is why we've started this community fellowship, which allows not only you, but people in our community to learn how to essentially start a raised bed. And a raised bed, people could be on your patio. It could be, so if you don't have a yard, right, it could be on your patio or your porch or something like that. And it starts with some soil and starting to plant some things. For example, some of the things that I hear, tomatoes has a great sense of vitamin B12 and B6 and different things. And, that kind of could help with some of you who feel overwhelmed, by the way. But learning like what specific foods could help my issues, like every one of these issues up here can be cured by food and by community and doing life in community with other people. Like literally we're seeing that. I mean, people are coming off and away from the pharmaceuticals, and we're using food as pharmaceutical. And part of how that happens, to the person who asked the question, is being able to have a platform to educate and let people grow things together. It's hard to grow something on your own, right? But if you're growing in a community and there's educational webinars that are coming through showing you what to do, pest control, type of soil, the season, seeding. I mean, there's a whole host of things, watering, what to grow at what time. There's so many different really unique things that it can be overwhelming. And when people fail at that once on their own, then they tend to get away from it. So that's why we need these community farms across the entire country, especially in cities, because not only does it address the food desert, but there's an opportunity to really get back to the kitchen table where we all at some point, that's how we grew inside of our families. That's how we build relationships with each other. That's how we get to know each other outside of anything else.
Thank you for that.
So how often are you giving to your neighborhood and community? Once a month, twice a month, 3 or more times a month? Or you currently just don't feel like you have the time?
And as the polls are going, I'm going to go ahead and read off. This one came from Rebecca. Shawn, I feel so inspired from your message and presence. One of my favorite children's books is called Everybody Cooks Rice. I believe in growing and cooking food as a connector. I volunteered at my son's K-8 school as a gardener helper. And FYI, I attended BT Washington High School in Pensacola. Awesome connection there.
No, that is awesome. And I appreciate that, the kind words. It really, it's really that. Where can we get quick, immediate wins? Where can we make an impact that's felt? But more importantly, part of the thing is being able. Some people, here, case in point, some folks invest into food banks, and a food bank is good for anybody doing that. Like, a lot of those things are good. But sometimes we deal with the symptoms and never deal with the problem in our world. And that's been all of our feedback, especially when you're working with, because I have to work with politicians of all parties, because things change, right? People get voted out, the new person's in. Well, you are now a member of Hope Community by position of your title. And we're going to love you and we're going to expose you to us all the time. And you're going to get to see what community is, because this is a very eclectic group of people of all shapes and sizes and colors. And so it's just so important to be able to have that sense of that openness, but also that the opportunity to connect politicians to what we're doing and keeping people in the loop so that we can stay on the front burner of no matter what's happening in our world on a local level. These are great questions, and I'm loving the responses here. I always tell people that come in, there is no bad or wrong answer, right? Especially when the first one was like, I'm overwhelmed. I mean, there's single moms that are, listen, they're trying to take care of their kids. They're going to ball. They're going to soccer practice. They're barely, by the way, that's one of the biggest groups that are suffer from food insecurity are single moms. One of the biggest groups. And so just imagine that for a second. And then you would understand why, as you think about what's on their their plate. So that overwhelmingness is usually in part because you're not connected into your community, right? Or you haven't expanded your circle. So if you started out at 0, or I don't do anything, Shawn, I just don't know where to start, I'm too busy. Just start with one group or one thing, or just start with an individual and just, like I think the young lady said, doing something with my school. It's around the kids. So that's my way of contributing.
And there was a comment made in the chat by Ryan. He said the entire city of Trenton, New Jersey, the capital city, didn't have a single grocery store when he lived near there, and it still doesn't.
Wow. Yeah, again, this is a unifying solution to many problems, and it doesn't take much. You bring in farmers. So one of the things we did, so I took the plan to everybody. So I talked to any and everybody who would listen, and got a lot of feedback. And that was someone asked earlier what was the largest hurdles, was dealing with everybody's feedback. Oh my gosh, some people were nice, some people were super rude. Some people thought it was just, someone's tried that, and why don't you do it this way? And you just have to let that stuff roll off and really just stay focused on the outcomes. And that's what I always try to do, is focus people on, well, what's in it for you is that a rising tide lifts all ships. And so we can help those at the bottom or underserved and not try to think why they're there or what they're not doing in their own lives that put them, remember there's children associated with all of this who are innocent. So at any rate, there is innocent people that are suffering to no fault of their own. And we should not ask what it looks like, what size it is, what color it is. Just deal with it and deal with it now with the talents that we have in each of you. Like that was one of the most shocking and awesome things that I learned was that your next door neighbor has exactly what you're missing in your life to help move any type of movement forward. Literally, there's people that I had no clue that they had these skills and expertise that are meant to bring together because, you know, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And we got to keep that in mind.
All right. And
And
we
with
are-
that being
go
said,
we are at time.
yeah, we are at time, and we want to thank you for making your voice heard and taking the opportunity to spend the afternoon with us and sharing a space with Shawn. Thank you again, Shawn. You were amazing, and the work that you're doing is amazing, and we're glad that we can help spread what it is that you are doing.
Thank you so much. Appreciate everybody. Thanks for your response. This would all be terrible if we don't do something after this. My schedule's crazy busy. I'm late to something right now, I can promise you, but it's all in love. And as long as we keep that the focus, we can do this together. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for
Thank
joining
you,
us today.
Shawn. Thank you.
Thank you.